The Dhammapada, by Narada Thera, Pali text and translation with stories in brief and notes. Read aloud. This is part 2. Chapter 2. Appamada Vaga, mindfulness or heedfulness section. The heedless die, the heedful do not. Heedfulness is the path to the deathless. Heedlessness is the path to death. The heedful do not die. The heedless are like unto the dead. Distinctly understanding this difference, the wise intent on heedfulness rejoice in heedfulness, delight in the realm of the Aryas. Now, the heedfulness means mindfulness, and the Aryas, or Aryas, are the Arhants and Buddhas. The constantly meditative, the ever steadfastly, one realizes the bond-free, supreme nirvana. The story. A jealous queen, Magandiya, caused an innocent rival of hers, Samavati, to become burned alive. The king, hearing of the pathetic incident, subjected Magandiya to a worse death. The monks wished to know which of the two was actually alive and which was actually dead. The Buddha explained that the heedless, like Magandiya, would be regarded as dead, while the heedful, like Samavati, should be regarded as alive. Now, heedful means non-infatuation, or infatuation, actually. Now, the discussion of this also. Nibbana, the ultimate goal of Buddhists, as the positive term clearly indicates, Nibbana is not an annihilation or a state of nothingness, as some are apt to believe. It is the permanent, immortal, supramundane, a state which cannot be expressed by mundane terms. This should not be understood to mean that they are immortal. No being is immortal, not even Buddhas or Arhants. The idea implied herein is that the heedful who realize Nibbana are not reborn and do not die. The heedless are regarded as dead because they are not intent on doing good and are subject to repeat births and deaths. Metaphysically, Nibbana or Nirvana is the extinction of suffering. Psychologically, it is the elimination of egoism. Ethically, it is the eradication of lust, hatred, and ignorance. The energetic prosper. The glory of him who is energetic, mindful, pure in deed, considerate, self-controlled, right living, and heedful steadily increases. The story. A rich but humble young man, who pretended to be very poor, living like a laborer, was later elevated to a high position by the king. When he was introduced to the Buddha by the king, he described the characteristics of those who prosper. By sustained effort, earnestness, discipline, and self-control, let the wise man make for himself an island, which no flood overwhelms. Story. A young monk, named Kulapandaka, could not memorize a verse of 4 lines despite trying for 4 months, and he was advised by his brother monk to leave the order, but he was reluctant to do so. The Buddha, understanding his temperament, gave him a clean piece of cloth and asked him to handle it gazing at the morning sun. By his constant handling of it, with his sweating hands, it soon became soiled. This perceptible change made him reflect on the impermanence of life. He meditated and attained arhantship. So remember here, it's not just about learning the words, it's about practicing the practice. Be heedful, not heedless. The ignorant, foolish folk indulge in heedlessness. The wise man guards earnestness as his greatest treasure. Indulge not in heedlessness. Have no intimacy with sensuous delights. Verily, the earnest, meditative person obtains abundant bliss. This is really talking about becoming more mindful of how you are. Story. A certain period of the year in India, it was the custom of some people to indulge in harsh speech for fun for 7 days, irrespective of persons. During that time, the Buddha and his disciples confined themselves to the monastery. In the close of the period, the devotees brought alms to the Buddha and his disciples, and remarked that the Buddha must have had an unpleasant time. The Buddha replied that despite such foolish acts, the wise live ever heedfully. So if you know it's going to happen, stay away from it, huh? Heedlessness should be conquered by heedfulness. When an understanding one disregards or discards heedlessness by heedfulness, he, free from sorrow, ascends to the place of wisdom and surveys the sorrowing folk as a wise mountaineer surveys the ignorant groundlings. Story. The Venerable Mahakassapa once endeavored to comprehend by his supernormal vision the birth and death of beings. The Buddha appeared before him and said it was only a Buddha who could comprehend the totality of existence. The strenuous and the alert overtake the thoughtless and the indolent. Heedful amongst the heedless, wide awake amongst the slumbering, a wise man advances as does a swift horse, leaving the weak jade behind. Story. 2 monks retired to a forest to meditate. One was strenuous, the other was not. The Buddha praised the former. It's not much of a story there. So, again, practice over just thinking, action over inaction. Earnestness leads to sovereignty. By earnestness, Magava rose to the lordship of the gods. Earnestness is ever praised, negligence is ever despised. Story. By his personal efforts and selfish service, an ordinary person became, after death, the king of the gods. Magava is synonymous with Saka, king of the gods. The Magga Manavaka Jataka relates that in the remote past a public-spirited person who had spent his whole lifetime in welfare work with the cooperation of his friends was born as Saka as a result of his good actions. Another one looking at the wheel of samsara and being born into a better existence. The heedful advance. The bhikkhu who delights in heedfulness and looks with fear on heedlessness advances like fire, burning all fetters, great and small. Story. A monk, failing in his meditation in the forest, was coming to see the Buddha. On the way he saw a forest fire advancing, burning all things, great and small. This sight induced him to think that he too should advance, burning all the fetters, great and small, by the fire of the Noble Eightfold Path. The Buddha read his thoughts, and radiating a ray of light, advised him accordingly. A fully ordained disciple of the Buddha is called a bhikkhu, mendicant monk. May be suggested as the closest equivalent for a bhikkhu. He is not a priest, as he is no meditator or mediator between God and man. He has no vows for life, but he is bound by his rules which he takes on his own accord. He leads a life of voluntary poverty and celibacy. If he is unable to live the holy life, he can discard the robe at any time. Heedful are the presence of nirvana. The bhikkhu who delights in heedfulness and looks with fear at heedlessness is not liable to fall. He is in the presence of nibbana. Story. A monk was frugal and contented. The Buddha attributed those characteristics to the monk's close association with him. In the past, he remarked that monks of his type were already in the presence of nirvana. Each one of these, for this section, is about doing the work, being mindful of the work, being mindful of the path that you are on, being mindful of the work that you have to do to get from point A to point B, and not letting go of that. This is Reverend Sean over the Center Path. Don't forget to subscribe at the bottom. We're going to go over each one of these things. You can see part 1, which I'll put, I think, up here, and then part 3 will be the next one, of course. And I'm going to be reading through the entire book, and we'll go from there. So I hope you guys are well. Take care.